In democracies, the government does not provide its own news content for the media to broadcast. That, my friends, is not news, it is propaganda. In democracies, the government does not, or should not, cherry-pick amongst the news media to allow access or interviews only to those who they like. I'm puzzled. The actions of this government do not sit easily with its top man, a former career journalist and editor of formidable talent. The executive has already taken back control of the lobby briefing for Westminster journalists by demanding it takes place in Downing Street. Then, on Monday, only those on an approved list were actually allowed into Number 10 to hear expert briefing. The rest were told to skedaddle, which led to a walkout of the entire lobby corps in solidarity. I applaud those journalists. At stake is the very freedom of the press to hold the government to account without fear or favour, the freedom that underpins all our democratic institutions. I urge the executive to chill out, turn the page and open itself up to wider scrutiny once more. It's playing with fire if it persists in control freakery with the press, and many more will end up hacked off.
No one knows better to answer this question than you. Is this your brother's call?
I have no idea,
What do
but
you think?
I very much doubt it. You know him as well as I. Not
no,
quite as well as I do,
I've known
but
him for many
it's
years.
not his style at all. I mean, his style
Well, what would you say to him?
I would say, what I would have said to him, which is there is no point in picking a fight with the press when they're all on your, essentially on your side and want Brexit to work.
See, here's the thing. Normally, when I hear journalists and people moan, I think, just give it a break. On this one, actually, I'm with you.
Go on.
And I think the support, the way that everybody, so those who were selected, decided up with this we will not put, and if they're going, we're going to. It was a rare moment, actually, when the press and the media actually behaved in a gentlemanly or decent fashion. So I have to say, I agree with you. I hope they can reconsider it. Sounds very eloquent. It's not the British way.
I agree, and it's so important. I think we should hear from the Shadow Culture Secretary, Tracy Brabin, who made a statement to the Commons on this subject.
Post-Brexit trade plans is an issue of great public concern, and access to a high-level briefing should not be handpicked by government political advisers. The exclusion of some publications led to every major national broadcaster and newspaper walking out. Lobby journalists' access to government is vital for a functioning and healthy democracy, and this latest deterioration in relations between the government and the lobby is deeply concerning.
Very strong, passionate words from Tracy Brabin, and I think we will be maybe discussing her attire a bit later in the programme. Greg, what do you think?
No, you're dead right. And it doesn't end with the lobby. I mean, this is happening, you know, they won't let certain politicians go on certain shows. They won't let, you know, they want anyone from the cabinet almost going on the Today programme on the BBC and the rest of it, because I think they get a hard time. It just seems to me, I think it's a very unwise thing to do. This government thinks it's all powerful. It's had got a big majority. Thinks, you know, everyone loves them. That can turn very quickly. And you know, when the Daily Mail starts writing, you know, leaders against what you're doing in terms of democracy, which is what they did, the big Conservatives should be very careful. I
agree. And when they start wanting to amplify their message, the press won't be on side to do it. Alex, I mean, does this sound to you like an inside bubble story that doesn't concern Joe Public?
Well, I think it does concern Joe Public. What we don't want to see is the start of, or the loss of freedom of speech. You know, the loss of the ability to, you know, really hear from all perspectives about what's really going on. You know, as a young person, I do actually use social media a lot, and I've got an interesting stat here that in 2019, 49% of people use social media for news, and in fact, Facebook was the third most popular source of news in the UK. So, and that's behind BBC and ITV.
And Michelle, I mean, we've seen Downing Street use social media as an alternative for mainstream media quite a lot. And do you think this is just the way things are going?
Well, I think you mentioned them using social media. Let's have a little look at our Prime Minister communicating directly with people.
Hi folks, so welcome to another edition of People's PMQs. This is your chance to put your questions to me, and I want to answer as many questions as I can. I want you to know that I will be saying more about leaving the EU. I will be giving an address to the nation at 10 p.m. on Friday here on my Facebook page. So thanks all of you for tuning in.
See, obviously that's the
Just
Prime
as
Minister.
fluid as he was when he did all those phone-ins with me, it hasn't changed.
Yeah, but obviously that's the Prime Minister, and he's appealing directly for people to get in direct contact with him so they can go through the questions and respond directly. And I think what the government is tapping into is there is a significant loss of trust at the moment in the media. There are a lot of people who now don't believe, rightly or wrongly, it's kind of irrelevant, but they don't believe what they're seeing and hearing. They feel like they are being fed propaganda by the media to further the media's objectives. So I think that this government has recognised that, is tapping into that.
Do you agree with selective briefing, i.e. he can go but you can't?
And most of them centre-left publications. The Mirror, HuffPost, The Eye, The Standard.
Yeah, I understand what they did. I think it's an incredibly slippery slope, and when you start going down, I don't think it's right, but I do think also that there is almost this sense of entitlement now that these media outlets have, or a lot of them have, which is, you're going to be on my show and you're going to debate me, end of, and we're going to humiliate you and shove ice blocks in your seat.
You talk to anybody who runs a show who's trying to get these guys on, or any politicians on. Yeah. They choose all the time whether they're going to come on.
But were they right?
And they're perfectly entitled to that. And there's nothing wrong with Boris Johnson trying to talk to the public through.
No, that's great. But when he made that address at 10 o'clock,
he doesn't do it very well.
On Brexit, no, it wasn't. No, well, that's how I used to be my phone-ins. When he made that address, you know that LBC took it, Sky News took it. You know the BBC and ITV refused to play that out. Do you agree with that? Because it was shot by the Prime Minister's in-house team,
I agree
effectively.
with that,
It wasn't pooled.
Yes, because...
Why?
Because it's the slippery... As I said in my cue, that's propaganda. You're allowing Downing Street to create and curate and broadcast its own news at a moment of national importance. We leave the EU after 47 years. We leave the EU after 47 years, and it's reduced to a clip on the Number 10 Facebook page.
Kevin Maguire says it, who from the Mirror, says it, I thought, very eloquently.
There is a principle, and I think it's a very democratic principle in Westminster, that all journalists, doesn't matter which TV station you're from, radio, website, newspaper, left, right, Sun, Mirror, Mail, Times, doesn't matter, you have access to public information. You get that information and then you give it to the public. What they're trying to do now is restrict who gets the information. I think that's a very dangerous path to go down. They want journalists to become clients, a favoured few who they will allow in, will then worry about their access, and will they then challenge the ministers or the officials who are giving them that information. No, I can see why it's happening, because they're drunk on power.
I think that's the point. I actually think it's very unwise politically for them to do it. I think it's...
Why?
Because I think the public, I think the media and the public will turn against them.
So do you honestly think, so you've got a Tory government that's pro-business, lower tax, etc. You honestly think that those publications that are owned by very wealthy people will suddenly, just be playing devil's advocate, switch from supporting them through to...
The Daily Mail already has.
Through to supporting
a Corbyn
style agenda.
I think they will say there is a danger to democracy.
Let's get Alex back involved. I just want to ask you about that, the video when the Prime Minister recorded. Do you think that should have been played by all the major broadcasters, or do you have issues?
I mean, I think that any content that's created like that, everyone should be able to have access to that. I think what worries me, looking at this whole picture, is that when I look at the US, you have the government, Trump, having control of the media and what goes out where, but then he's soundboxing his own things on his Twitter accounts to many millions of people. And let's be honest, it's a huge reach to all of his content, so he's got ultimate control. And I think that's what I wouldn't want to have happen, where social media is an outlet of what I want to say, but nothing else can be interpreted.
Can I make an important point?
After I tell you what the Conservatives are saying, this is Chloe Smith. The briefing was additional to normal lobby handlings. Those lobby handlings are entirely normal, standard and routine, and have been so over successive governments. In addition to the briefings and the very normal routine operation of the lobby, the Prime Minister has a huge amount of further appointments and engagements on a range of channels.
Anyway, let's move on. There are only a few people in the world who can tell me what they think of my outfit. Yes. If you're not Trini or Susanna, then I don't want to know, really. I'm not interested. So it's safe to say, if people on the internet started commentating on what I was wearing, I wouldn't be too happy. I don't think it's likely. But that's exactly what happened to Labour MP Tracy Brabin this week when she dared to wear an outfit in Parliament that revealed, wait for it, her bare shoulder. That's right. The internet went into absolute meltdown after one user tweeted a photo of Tracy saying, the person said, "Is this really appropriate attire for Parliament?" But Tracy was quick to hit back at trolls with the perfect response. She said, "Sorry, I don't have time to reply to all of you commenting on this, but I can confirm that I'm not a slag, hungover, a tart, about to breastfeed, a slapper, drunk, just being banged over a wheelie bin." Who knew people could get so emotional over a shoulder? Well said, Tracy.
Oh.
And for giving those keyboard warriors the ultimate cold shoulder, you are our straight talker of the week.
Gosh.
Utter nonsense. If I keel over and have a heart attack near to the doctor's hospital, I do not expect him to come and treat me wearing sandals and flip-flops and a small top. You have a certain stress sense if you're an MP, if you're a surgeon, if you're a doctor, if you're a politician, if you're a lawyer. It's a fact.
I must say, you know, I would never be as judgmental as those idiots on Twitter are. However, I do think that certain workplaces have certain dress codes, and I think in Parliament and in business environments, most of them, there's professional dress standards.
And over time, they change, and they change quite dramatically. And there was a time, not until quite recently, you had to wear a tie in Parliament.
Yeah,
you go to most
you
meetings.
You wouldn't come here and wear a vest, would you?
Doctor,
I might.
Doctor, how do you dress?
She could have caught a cold.
I actually think I'm more interested in what she's saying than what she's wearing, to be honest. If I'm completely honest about it, that's my thoughts.
If I'm going to be completely honest about it, if that was my daughter, I mean, my mum would have said to me, "Darling, put a jacket on." Having said that, she was fearless and provocative in her response.
Yes, no, I mean, it's perfectly valid to say to somebody, "Are you sure you want to wear that? Are you sure that's going to make you look serious?" and things like that. I think that's
also,
right.
can I just say, where was her bra?
Well, I'll have to think about what I'm going to wear next week, I think. That's all we've got time for this week, but you can join in the debate by searching for The Pledge on Twitter and on the Sky News Facebook page. If you want to take the debate with you, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whichever app you prefer. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Straight talking.